Morning everyone. So I'm Jason. I look after the e-commerce and digital for Aberdeen Airport. Today I've got a very specific subject to speak about, and that is eCRM. So I'm sure you're all more than aware, but eCRM is how you handle your sort of customer data and any communications to those customers. Definitely an area that we're quite well developed in recent times. So a little bit about me to start off, just for anyone who's not aware. I was formerly a student at RGU, so back in 2009 I completed my degree in corporate communications here, and because of that I know some of the lecturers here still quite well. I've since gone on to do a professional diploma in digital marketing, which is quite similar to the course that you guys are working on now. Unfortunately I had to go to London for that, but that was quite a good qualification to pick up, and actually validated a lot of the stuff I already knew, which was quite nice. Big passion for marketing generally. Started my career in more the traditional side of marketing, the sort of newspaper ads, radio scripts, that type of thing, but then moved quite swiftly into digital, website management, CRM, social media and all that type of thing. Also a big advocate of technology, really sort of like to keep the airport at the forefront of everything that's happening, especially in the travel sector. 8 years now, actually my 9th year working at the airport. It's a very interesting place to work, very diverse. You've probably seen all Heathrow, Britain's busiest airport, that type of thing. It is a little village of its own, and the marketing side of it is just one side. Had a variety of different commercially focused roles, always been part of the commercial team, but started off in marketing, did a little bit in retail, working with the likes of World Duty Free and the various retailers at the airport. Actually spent about 3 years working in route development, which is quite an interesting role. That's about basically business development for airports, where you try and attract new airlines and leisure destinations for the people of Aberdeen to then fly on holiday or fly off to various locations across the world. Fairly successful in that route. We attracted Lufthansa, which sadly we don't have anymore. They're coming out, but we attracted them in 2011. We also attracted the likes of Aer Lingus and some of the other leisure operators like TUI or Thomson Holidays at the time. And then for the last 4 and a bit years I've been doing e-commerce, which is all about generating online sales, where we do about 50,000 online transactions a year, and also the digital side of things, which is everything from websites to social media and CRM and everything in between. So day-to-day basis, loads of stuff on the go. Today it's about CRM and communications, email comms, but also there's a whole host of other things in there like PPC, SEO, analytics, content design. We even do our own in-house content design. Recently speaking about how we've taught ourselves how to use Adobe Premiere Pro recently, which is definitely, if there's one tip that I could give outside of CRM, it's try and be self-sufficient with your content design, because it can save you a lot of money and it can give you a lot more power back to yourself as a marketing team. So a lot of people don't like this subject, but it's definitely the most important one at the moment. It's GDPR. You're all obviously more than aware. I think everyone in their dog knows about GDPR now, but it's really important to keep it in mind especially when you're speaking about personal data. GDPR, biggest change since the DPA in 1998. That's been the legislation for the last 20 years. Since obviously digital has come on leaps and bounds since then, the fundamentals behind the DPA really has changed, so hence the reason for the GDPR coming in. Obviously 25th of May this year is when it comes into force. That's when the penalties and the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, can actually sanction you for misuse or malpractice in data protection. Applies across all businesses, regardless of size, in the EU, and that it doesn't matter about Brexit, because the GDPR was all agreed before Brexit took place. So I've had a lot of people say, well, Britain will be part of the EU, so does it apply to us? It does still apply, sadly, to British companies. Although I do say sadly, but it is actually a good thing. It concerns personal data, and there's huge penalties for not complying with it. I think that a lot of companies locally and nationally are using scare tactics with these types of figures. In reality, I don't think if you leave a business card lying on a desk or misplace some CCTV footage, you're going to get charged 20 million euros. But that is the maximum penalty that can be given to companies that don't use data well. So a very high-profile case last year, one quite close to home, our biggest airline, Flybe. One of their digital marketing team actually sent a communication to a list of unsubscribed contacts, encouraging them to resubscribe, and then they got charged £80,000, which was one of the biggest fines ever levied on a travel sector company. If it was post GDPR, it would have been so much more than that. But yeah, it's definitely takes it home and makes it really worth thinking about. In terms of personal data, that is basically anything that can identify an individual person. So it doesn't need to be names and addresses. It can be pictures, CCTV footage of the person. It can be a unique identifier that can then be linked back to the person, using reasonable means. It can be really anything that can help you to identify someone. One of the fundamental things behind GDPR is that if there is someone that is on your database, they need to have clearly defined or have clearly defined to them what it is that they're actually opting in for. No longer can you just tick a box mandatory or have the box pre-ticked to subscribe to newsletters and just expect that that person will be okay with that. You have to say exactly what you're going to be sending them. You have to say how you're going to be sending it to them, how often, how their data is going to be stored, all sorts of things like that that basically gives the information back to the consumer so they understand how their data is going to be used. And you can't have opt-out. It has to be a voluntary, clearly defined opt-in, which actually was something that we didn't have in some of our channels until quite recently. So our Wi-Fi in particular was an opt-out rather than an opt-in, and that makes up about 90% of our entire customer database. So we had to make that change, and it is now made. The intended use, as I say, of the data must be clearly outlined, so that takes in, like your privacy policies, your cookie policies. If you're collecting cookies on a website, and then you're using them to then serve dynamic ads on Facebook or content across the Google Display Network, you need to actually define that to the customer. You can't just say, we will collect information on your browsing habits. You have to say why you'll do it and then how you're going to use it. Data must be stored used as stated and held only for a reasonable time period. So this is one that I've taken a lot of exception to recently because we have a lot of customers on our database who are long-standing, frequent flyers to the airport, who might book things like airport car parking or a lounge. They may open up our email newsletters and they're really quite engaged with us. Some of them have been on that database for 5 years. I'm not going to just delete them. Because they are engaged customers who are interested in our information, and there's nothing in the GDPR that says you must delete them. However, you cannot store the data for longer than is necessary to perform the task that you've outlined, is the gist of it really. So if you took in someone to maybe send them very specific communications around a certain event or something, let's say a food festival or something like that, you can't then start sending them communications 3 years later about something completely separate. It's kind of a common sense approach. Must be held securely and documented, so you need to know where all your data is, how it's being stored, where it's going, and by what method. So you can't just say it's on a spreadsheet on a few people's computers. That wouldn't hold up with ICO. What you can say is it's stored in a secure, encrypted database. It's automatically transferred from a booking system into a database using SFTP encryption, and it's done on an API level or once a day or once a week. And then it's kind of documenting that whole process and making sure that people understand, or the customer understands how their data is going to be processed and who's going to have access to it if you're sharing it across different systems. And the last part is the data subject, which is basically the person who you hold personal data for. They've got the right to be forgotten, and they can also do a subject access request now, which needs to be actioned within a certain time period. So that means if I was to go to John Lewis and say, I want everything you hold on me, they have to respond within a certain time period with everything that they hold on me, so that I can then assess whether or not I want to be forgotten. And if I then go back to them and say, I want you to get rid of me from that database, then they have a certain time period to act upon that as well. So I think the main part about GDPR really is it's all about handing power back to the consumer, and it's for a long time it's the business that's been in control, but now it is very much the individual. If you want to find out more, the ICO website is really good, and it's got loads. It's got like really sort of very basic guides all the way to the proper detailed legislation as a whole in there. Although with all of this in mind, whatever company you end up moving into, if you're in digital marketing, that will be something that you'll be asked about and you'll be expected to know about. So the more fun part is the actual what we do with our data and how we communicate with our customers. So CRM, it is, I think, in my own opinion, I think that CRM is the most important owned channel that any company has if it's done correctly. Forget social media, forget Google advertising, forget anything else. If you have high quality, mass, big data coming in frequently that is rich enough that you can then tailor your messaging to your audience and to use one-to-one personalised communication direct to that person's inbox, I think that's far more powerful than doing something that gets some good reach on Facebook. So the thing with this channel is it allows you to basically guarantee, if you send technically the right type of communication, you can guarantee placement in your customer's inbox. Very personal to them, very direct, not part of a news feed. It's in their inbox. They scroll through that emails when they're looking at their communications from friends, family, and other businesses. So the other thing that it does is it doesn't have any restrictions. So you don't need to pay for it. I mean, you need to pay for software and you need to pay for email credits, maybe, depending on your choice of provider. But you don't actually need to pay a media budget to email those people. You don't need to. It doesn't need to form part of a schedule, or it doesn't care about the rest of what's happening in the world that day if it's a busy news day and social media is flooded with different messages. It can be a message that you choose, designed in the way that you want it, and it can go whenever you want. And if it's done correctly, on the other side of it, when you look in the sort of under the bonnet at the data, you can get good insights into your customers if you collect the right type of data and you make it rich enough and consistent enough. You can actually know what is going on with your customers, which with like so Facebook, for example, and by the way, I'm a big advocate of Facebook, but one of the things that you can't do on Facebook is you can't really get that data back because Facebook owns that customer. You can choose who you target, whether they like flights to Alicante, Ryanair, they live in Aberdeen or anything like that, but you'll never get that data coming back out of that channel to you that you own. In your database, you can collect any data that you want within reason, and you own that customer to an extent. So we have, up until quite recently, had quite a traditional approach with our CRM, and these are some of the communications that we've sent up at the top here. So, we, like every other company, we make a killing in Black Friday, selling things like lounges and parking, etc. We announced new routes, Alicante, Malaga and Faro, from Aberdeen with Ryanair, a new airline there. Valentine's messages with the likes of Air France flights to Paris, and even automated comms that go out when someone returns from their car park that trigger that say, where do you want to fly to next? Here's some inspiration, that type of thing. One of the things to see here is you can't really see it very well, but just from solus emails, so that's non-newsletter emails, dedicated campaigns, we've seen a 660% increase in traffic between 1st of January and 29th of November last year to our website and booking systems from email. And that's just for one type of email. There's also newsletter comms in there. There's other trigger types of emails that we do, and typically you're seeing hundreds of % increase, and that's just for us. I'm sure that other companies are quite similar. So airport's most direct marketing channel. As I say, it goes straight to the inbox. Email is still important. A lot of people think of email as kind of an old technology, and tend to favour some of the more exciting stuff like, your new social media channels and that coming in. Email to me is still a very important channel, probably the most important. To give you a sense of scale, the airport itself, just Aberdeen, has about 900,000 customers on our overall database, which is far more than the almost 100,000 that we have following us across social media. And again, like I say, this big data, this is people that we own to an extent. We sent 5.1 million emails last year, so 49 campaigns over the year. And that is a large volume of emails going into the inboxes of our customers to generate revenue, but also interest in our different services that we have. And of that, we had just over 1 million people open that particular email, which is 20%, which for anyone who does benchmarking or looks at any industry terms, from travel industry perspective, 20% is a really good open rate. And the way that we achieve that is by keeping our database nice and clean. So we don't send to people, the general rule we have at the moment is we don't send to people if they haven't opened an email in the last 4 months, they get suppressed. So we're only sending to people that are really active and really want to receive the communications. Almost just short of 100,000 clicks, which kind of frustrates me a little bit. But yeah, 95,000 clicks from those emails. So about just under a 10% click to open rate. Some people measure click-through rate, which I don't think is a good metric, because why would you measure someone's click rate if they've not opened the email? Because then you can't understand how they've engaged with the content that's in the email. Because some people do like a 1% or even 0.something% click-through rate from a mass email campaign that they've sent. What I do is I do click to open rate, so that is people who have opened the email, of those people, how many people have clicked. So for me that's a better metric, but everyone's different. We have less than 0.5% opt-out rate, and again the reason for that is I think we keep our database nice and clean, and people who are not interested don't receive the emails. Up until recently we had quite minor levels of segmentation, which was a bit of a system limitation, not really a lack of willingness to do it, and the reason for that was basically the system didn't allow us that much flexibility in terms of segmenting out our customers into nice segments that we could tailor the message to them. But what we did do is we would do it like based on geolocation. So if someone lives in Scotland, they receive a certain type of email. If they don't live in Scotland, then we would receive one about great things to do to visit in Aberdeen. If they've booked parking recently, they might receive X type of communication. If they have booked the lounge, they might receive another type. So we did do kind of minor segmentation, but the system that we had previously didn't really allow us to do much more than that. And of course, it goes without saying, but everything nowadays is on mobile. Our web traffic is about 65% mobile. We get about 1 million unique visitors a year to our website, and the vast majority of them are looking at on a mobile screen. No different from email. About 45% of all opens for our email is mobile. So, don't make your templates desktop only. Make the extra effort to make them mobile responsive. Everything from MailChimp all the way up to Salesforce and Adobe all have pre-built mobile responsive templates now, so there's not really an excuse not to do that. And another one that a lot of people overlook, but just keep on top of any browser or device changes that happen. A new iPhone comes out, make sure that your emails render correctly on that phone, because a year's time most people will probably have that iPhone. Same with if Chrome do a big enhancement to their browser, or any other browser comes out, just make sure that your emails render correctly. It is worth taking the time, especially if that browser gets more popular, to make sure that your emails display and function correctly on them. The other thing to say actually just at this bottom bit here is you can see that we are quite peaky. That bottom line there is online revenues attributed to email, and you can see that at times where we send out communications, we see jumps in email revenue, as you would imagine. So a little blue line down there, that's Black Friday. There's other ones there where we do like January sales and things like summer sales and that for things like the online car park or the lounge or whatever. The one in July there was when we opened the new Airport Northern Lights Executive Lounge, which was part of our £20 million terminal transformation, and you can see that we've had a massive spike of bookings there from that sort of introductory email, which is quite good. By the way, I'm conscious that I'm speaking quite a lot here, so if you do have any questions, just feel free to just shout. It's not a problem. So I think that one thing really that I always have as a kind of in the back of my head is if content's king, data's queen. So without good data, your content can only go so far because you don't know who you're serving that content to. It's kind of like if you send a letter out to hundreds of thousands of addresses, you're not sure who's going to like the content of that letter, because you're just kind of mass blanket campaigning it. And your data feeds what content you do as well. So some examples, your marketing can only be as effective as what you know about your customer, which is an obvious thing to say. I always ask, what do I already know? So, what are we collecting? So up until recently, we only collected title, so like Mr., Mrs., etc., forename and surname, email address and postcode. And we had that across 900,000 customer records, consistent with 0 blanks, so that we could at the very least target everyone in our database based on postcode or gender. That's kind of it. But what we've been doing up until, quite recently is what should or could we know about the customers. So most customers will give you information if they feel it will help you to tailor a message more specifically to them. So we have been asking some of these things down the bottom here, collecting relevant but useful data to power the marketing. So you can see here, date of birth. Actually, it's just completely irrelevant. I just got a letter through the post this morning from Marks and Spencer's. It said, your birthday's in a week. Here's a free £6 box of chocolates to use in store. And it had a voucher on it. And that's because I've given them my date of birth. And I opened that and I was like, that's brilliant. You know, that's really nice. You know, I probably will go and get that box of chocolates because why wouldn't you? You know, and we're looking to do the same. We already collect date of birth through various systems that we operate, but I'm trying to make that more consistent across our various channels. You know, things like which destination guides did all of our million people that view our website look at? You know, did they look at Alicante? Did they look at London? Did they look at Amsterdam? Why did they look at that? Should we send them a communication based on the fact that we looked at that information? The products booked, which is a complete obvious one if you're operating any e-commerce system. So like I say, 50,000 transactions a year, people are booking products frequently. Their average order value ranges from anything from £30 up to £100. You know, how often are they booking it? What are they looking at? What are they booking? And you know, on which flights are they on? Do they always book on a Tuesday? Do they always fly to London? You know, those types of things. We have that information available through a segment of our database. Let's use it to power our marketing. Email, social, and PPC link activities. So, you know, anything from your Facebook data to people who are clicking on certain things within your emails. So if you open an email that we send you and it says fly to Malaga with Ryanair, and you click the link to fly to Malaga, chances are you're probably quite interested in flying to Malaga. So why stop there? Why just send them another campaign that says fly to London? Why not put that people into a separate segment that says these are people interested in Malaga? Or even take it a step further and bundle them in with other people that are interested in summer sun or leisure breaks, you know, and then send those people a certain type of communication. And you don't actually need to build that communication. You can actually automate it. So you build it at the start, and then it just becomes part of a live customer segment that then, if that happens, they receive emails automatically, you know. And it's less admin, it's less stress to build those campaigns on a whim, if you like. PPC click activity, like so many other companies, we spend a fortune on PPC, but are we spending it effectively? We have data when they hit our website or our booking system that says that person clicked a link. You can append your URL to say this person clicked a certain campaign. If they clicked that campaign, would they have clicked the first thing they seen on Google anyway? If that is true, then don't spend on them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can refine your spend to make it so that you don't have to spend a fortune on PPC, and you can really refine it using your customer database. Geolocation, so one of the big projects we're working on this year is we're going to launch an Aberdeen Airport app, and one of the main reasons that I want to do that, well, two of the main reasons, but one of them is push notifications for flight information. So if you are, most passengers, you'll see them, they'll grab a cup of coffee, they'll walk up to a flight information display screen, and they'll stand there for about 2 or 3 minutes just looking for their flight. They'll say, okay, is class scheduled? What does that mean? Does that mean I need to wait here, or can I go and shop, or can I go to the lounge? If you had that come through in a push notification to a smartwatch or an iPhone, it takes that away. They don't need to worry about it anymore. They can go and do whatever they want in the airport, and they know, safe in the knowledge that they'll get a vibration on their phone or their watch or whatever that says, go to gate. So from a retail perspective and a commercial point of view, much better to do it that way. Also, things like the reaction rate emails. So if we have geolocation data for people that are on the app, synced up to our database in real time, we will know every single person that's on our database that comes through the front door. So when they come in, we maybe give them a grace period of 30 minutes to check in. Then we send them a live email that says, here's today's in-terminal offers, or here's a discount code to go up to the lounge, or here's a code for parking next time you come in. It allows you to be really reaction rate in real time using, again, customer data. And things like flight number, we collect that all over the place, but for obvious reasons, it's great to have that information. Our website at the moment, one of the most popular sections on it is you can actually type where you're going as in a kind of Google-style search bar at the start of the website, and it will append the URL to add that flight number on the end. And what we'll do is we'll give you a personalised timeline for that specific flight. So it'll tell you time to the flight, updates in real time via Twitter or email, Also destination guides, whether in Amsterdam, book parking, book lounge, it's just everything that is associated with that destination. But at the moment, it's sitting in Google Analytics, not doing anything. Why don't we collect that information and append the customer record to say that person went onto that flight timetable today, or that flight timeline today, and they went on last Tuesday as well, so chances are they're a frequent flyer, they go to London every week. Right, let's email that person something about things to do in London, or, you get the point. So I think the key point on this slide is, just really assess your data, make sure that you're collecting things that actually will help you with your marketing. Don't just kind of collect the core fields because you think it will annoy people if you ask for more. A lot of the time people will give you more if they think it will make the experience better for them. So I've talked about traditional approach. This is kind of the modern approach which we have adopted fairly recently. But obviously make the database the hub of everything you do. So all your social media, your PPC, your web activities should all in some way be connected to your database. Even our internal Wi-Fi is now connected to our database in real time. So it's kind of making that central repository the kind of brain of your marketing, if you like. Add as many relevant connections to it as possible and upload as close to possible in real time. So some of you will be familiar with like APIs, which are little bits of software which will actually share in real time customer data with your database. Most of your big companies that do customer databases actually have APIs out of the box available for developers. So you can say, right, I've got BT doing my Wi-Fi, I want to take an API from my eCRM provider, connect the two together, and whenever someone registers for the first time or comes online on Wi-Fi, they then get appended on the CRM database, so we know that that person's both on the Wi-Fi and we have an opportunity to market to them through the CRM system if we wanted to. Create data sources where relevant, if they'll provide better insights, which is a little bit of a repeat on what I just said previously. But if you see the need to create a data source, or you think, wouldn't it be great if we knew that about our customers? As long as you're not asking them for like medical records or stuff that's personally sensitive to them, they'll probably give it to you. Again, like I say, if they think it will make their experience better. The other way that you can do it is what we do with our Wi-Fi, where you ask them a series of opening questions, but if they come back, ask them some more, and then if they come back, ask them more again. So what we're doing at the moment is we've got a core field on Wi-Fi, which, as I say, makes up 90% of our customer data. But then next time they come, we ask them again, where are you traveling to, and why are you going there? Is it business or leisure? So by the time they've hit 3 trips through the airport, we know that person is Joe Blogs, and this is their email address and postcode, but they've been to London, Amsterdam, and Alicante. One of them was for business, 2 of them were for leisure. So you've got a picture of that person, you know they're that type of customer, Personalise your communications as close as possible to a one-to-one customer message. So even like the Marks & Spencer example I gave earlier, that was very specific to me. It's my birthday next week, so I'm thinking, bloody hell, Marks & Spencer's know that I'm getting a box of chocolates for this. If I can do the same for people in my database, where I say, right, everyone that's birthday this next week, they get 25% off the lounge or a free glass of champagne when they go up. People will probably book it. Or if we know that they're flying, you can do the same thing, because they've come in through the car park, they've made a booking, we know they're arriving at this date, leaving at that date, send them something that's relevant to them. Automate messages, which is something that a lot of people overlook, but most of your CRM systems, even down to the likes of MailChimp or Pure 360, they do have automation functionality built in. So you can create basically these customer journeys where you've got some criteria has been met. So let's say that from an e-commerce point of view, someone has booked 10 times in the last 6 months and their average order value exceeds £50 each time. They can form a dynamic segment of people who, when they hit that segment, it triggers an automation or a series of emails that then go out to that person, because we know they're a high value returning customer. They receive communications that match that criteria, that's maybe about some of the more premium flights and services that we offer. And you can do that for absolutely everything that's on your database. If the data exists, you can pretty much create an automated campaign for it. The one that I'm working on at the moment is not quite there yet, but it's about to be. It's a Wi-Fi welcome email. So when someone goes in to the Wi-Fi for the first time, in real time, it says, we know you're at the airport, here's some offers. Here's some offers on whiskey, here's an offer on the lounge. This is some news on the terminal transformation. Here's a video that shows some of the benefits of the lounge, for example. And we can build that email and just leave it, because we know that the content on it is pretty much going to be solid for at least 6 months or whatever. We just let it run, and anyone who enters the Wi-Fi, the system is doing my job for me. I don't need to build the email each time and press the send button, it just goes. So what have we been doing? So we've actually just launched on the 1st of December. We're live with a system called Salesforce, which you'll all be familiar with, but it's Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So it's a bit of a eCRM sledgehammer. It does everything, and nobody is an expert at it because it's just so vast in terms of what it can actually do. But it allows us to do some quite amazing things. So we can personalize through dynamic content. So dynamic content being let's imagine this image is a destination, but you receive this email, and one person who's looked at an Alicante destination guide might see top 10 things to do in Alicante, and then another person might see top 10 things to do in London, but it's dynamic to their data criteria. So the click-through rate on that email is far greater because the person's actually interested in the content rather than us just saying fly with Ryanair because it's a good airline or whatever, This is probably the thing that excites me the most on this, but it's called collect code, and that's if you imagine you've got 100,000 people going to your website, but we only know about 10,000 of them because they've previously registered with us through booking a product or going in through Wi-Fi. With collect code, we collect information on 100,000 people, so we know anonymously who's looking at what guides on our website, what flights, whether they've looked at a car parking product or the lounge or anything else. And then at the point where that person becomes identifiable to us, they maybe register for a newsletter or go into Wi-Fi or enter an online competition, the backdated data that we have on that person becomes available to us for marketing. And that's something that we've never had before, and it's really exciting because it means that you're not starting from afresh with your customers. You know about your customers at the point they identify themselves, which creates an onus where we need to identify our customers faster. And that's live for us now. Automation, as I just spoke about, so Wi-Fi triggers, which I mentioned. Welcome home emails, so this type of thing. This is one that we had a while back actually, but it's basically if they come back from like the car park or the lounge or something where we need that information because we need to know how much to charge them, so it's mandatory information. When are you going into the car park, when are you going out? When the trigger of when you are going out the car park hits, this email within 24 hours hits their inbox and says, how was your trip, did you enjoy it? Here's some amazing other places you could possibly go from Aberdeen. Destination inspiration, so kind of the Alicante top 10 things to do message that I mentioned before. And the live segmentation, which again is the dynamic lists of people based on how much they've paid or what content they've looked at or whatever. It's kind of like I'm being quite kind of blasé and top line on this because there's so much that you can do. It's just that it's trying to bring it forward to let you see what you can actually do with these systems. You can even, it's even supported through the main channels that you would expect. So likes of your AdWords, Google Display Network, your Facebook, etc. You can actually, I was at a conference not too long ago where KLM were showing this in an amazing example where it found people who had done a search on klm.com for Aberdeen to Dubai, let's say. And when they went onto their Facebook timeline, they were playing an actual video of Dubai with a live price feed for a return flight from Aberdeen for the dates that they specified, which in terms of personalised marketing, you almost can't get any better than that because that person is seeing a video of somewhere they're actually interested in with a live price on the dates that they want to go within Facebook, and all of that's through customer data because they've collected the data on what that person's done, what they're looking at, they've fed it back through an API into Facebook, and they've used dynamic video content to feed in their top destinations and fed in the origin and destination plus a live price feed into that video, which is super forward thinking. I think it's really good. I mean, we're nowhere near that yet, but I'd love to get to that stage. And more than just email, so CRM is not just about emailing people. You can text them, like a Domino's Pizza, your bookmakers and all that. It's constantly text coming your way, and you're like, wow, it's sometimes it's a bit too much. For me, we don't text because I think it's a bit too direct for us as an airport. But some companies, like say your Just Eats and all that, people often want to just order food, so it does make sense. Push notifications, so with our app you can schedule all that through Salesforce and manage all your push notifications and the criteria that feed your push notifications. And Social Studio, which I don't think I've got a slide on, but that is one of the benefits that we have with Salesforce. So you may have used something like Hootsuite before, where it's kind of like multi-social media channel management software. Social Studio is kind of like Hootsuite, but times 10 in terms of what it can do. It's got like topic listening profiles, so you can actually find out what people are saying about Aberdeen Airport, even if they're not saying it on your channel. You can go out to the market and see what people are saying about it and then respond in real time. You can assign it to colleagues that are all signed up to be on Social Studio. It's got an app that then push notifies that colleagues. So for example, if someone says, I can't believe this customer service I just received down in the terminal, I can then assign that to one of our duty managers, and they'll receive a push notification on their phone being down in the terminal, open it, see that customer query, direct message that customer and say, where are you, give me a phone, and then go and find them and correct the problem. So it's really powerful and it can do some amazing things. We are, I would say, at teething stage on Social Studio at the moment because it's a cultural thing. It's trying to get people onto that level. But you know, it's a lot of there's so many members of staff with so many different levels of expertise that it's not the easiest thing to do, but we're definitely making the right steps on that. And again, that comes with the Salesforce platform. The database becomes central to the digital strategy, not just an add-on, which I think I've kind of laboured that point quite a lot. So 2 examples that I gave when we tendered for this, and if you, hopefully you can all see this, but an anonymous user not on our database looks at a destination guide for Malta, which incidentally is our newest route. If you didn't already know that, we've got Malta launching in a month's time with Ryanair, which they've seen on Facebook through a sponsored post that we've done, and they then pick up their friend from the airport, so someone who's flying in. They then go onto the database because they are sitting in one of our coffee shops and they go onto Wi-Fi. No longer do we just know that that customer has come in because they've been in the coffee shop on the Wi-Fi. We also know that they are interested in Malta. Yeah, we've got backdated on the customer, backdated data on the customer, which is something that the collect code allows us to do. And then the second scenario, which is probably one that's a bit more frequent for us, but the short stay car parks, so the one that's opposite the main terminal. We notice a dip in the performance of it and we want to stimulate some new bookings to get us back to our budgeted figure. Re-engaging those that have maybe not booked for a while but they used to book quite a lot. We can do the whole dynamic segment thing. So targeting people based on people that have booked 3 times in the last 12 months but not in the last 3. We can send a targeted email to those people. So you know, that's the type of thing that can now be done with this new system. So almost finished. A few tips, if I was to give you some based on my experience for CRM. With everything in digital, learn. You know, I was speaking to Simone earlier about Premiere Pro. I've just had a baby recently. She's 2 months old, so I'm up at 3 in the morning sometimes. And you know, there's not much going on at 3 in the morning, so like whilst she's getting her milk, I'll sit on YouTube and look at Premiere Pro tutorials, as sad as that sounds. But what that allows us to do is we now create our own videos. So previously we would have got a company to do it, probably paid them maybe a couple of £1,000 depending on the complexity of the video. But if you go onto our Facebook page now, all the video content, or the majority of the video content that we do, I design on my own computer and post myself. And the same applies to CRM. You know, Salesforce has, and I'm not saying that you go with Salesforce, but the one that we have used, it has like these really cool kind of this cool community where you can get badges, which sounds like really sort of childish, but you get these badges based on courses that you do on the online platform, and then you can level up and all that type of thing. It's kind of a gamification of your job, and it's kind of do that but for everything. But for CRM, if you're really into it, you know, make sure that you learn about all the new technologies and all the new areas that you can develop in. Test things, which again is not exclusive to CRM, but I am testing everything all the time, and we get stuff wrong every day. We fail all the time. Sometimes I'll throw budget at stuff and it just won't work. Don't get disheartened by that. That's kind of the main point of it. You know, the good thing about digital is if you realise that you're spending a fortune on something and it's not converting, pause it, refine it, cancel it. You know, take what you've learned, move on to something else. And the same applies to CRM. You know, we've tested things like dynamic content. We've tested optimum time send, where someone maybe, if Simone opens her emails at 5 p.m. every day and I open mine at 10 a.m., I'll receive the same email at 10 a.m. and you'll receive one at 5 a.m. And that's functionality that we've tested successfully and it's worked, so we then implement it for future campaigns. Data is king or queen, whatever, but data is important, yeah. So arm yourself with the best quality data, ask for it reasonably, use it the way it's intended, and make it consistent. Don't put holes in your data, because the second you do that, you lose the opportunity to market to people and they get lost in your database. If you, with us, as I say, title, forename, surname, postcode, we collect that consistently across 900,000 customer records, so nobody's lost. But add to it if you feel it will create a segment of people that you might want to market to more about a certain product or service. Yeah, content's king, data's king. I think one of them's meant to say queen, but you get the point. Create engaging content. Again, you've probably heard this 1,000 times, but content's all about the engagement that you can get from it. So don't just churn stuff out for the sake of it, because you realise that every time you send out an email, you make a couple of extra £1,000. People start to get bored of that quickly. Try and think like the customer. What do they want to see? Is it video? Is it something about your staff? Is it some community engagement stuff? Don't always just send out boring salesy content, because if you do that, then people turn off really quickly. As I say, we're less than 0.5% on subscribe list from our 5.2 million emails, so you must be doing something right, but it's not. It's because we consider these things. We don't just send out stuff for the sake of it. And obviously make them as personalised as possible to the actual individual who's receiving it. Collect more than the traditional data. So obviously a lot of people, when they think of CRM, think of a form. Think of that form then feeding in some kind of spreadsheet or SQL database, and then that will be nicely packaged together. Use cookies, use Facebook data, use PPC data, use Google Analytics. Build it all through an API into your CRM database, because that way you're going to get that full experience, where if you just have the core fields, you can only do so much with that. You don't have the bigger picture. Exceed GDPR requirements and make data security a business process. That should really be number one priority, but obviously data security, Flybe, various others, NHS, Sony, they've all been held up for data breaches. You don't want to be the guy sitting behind the computer who's had a data breach, because it's not nice. And link all of your digital channels together as much as possible, but with CRM as your sort of digital center. So your website should feed your CRM, your social media should feed it, your PPC should feed it, everything should go in, if possible, into your CRM database. And don't be afraid to challenge the norm. So one of the things that I've struggled with over my career is trying to get people who are not digitally savvy to think digitally. You have to be confident enough with your data and your strategy to stand in front of your directors or your bosses and say, we should pay this money for this, and we should do this because this is what we're going to get out of it, or somewhere in that realms. If you don't do that, probably, if you're not in a big enough team, then no one else will, and it will never happen. So the example we were using recently with Simone's social media influencer marketing, we've sent someone off to Norway earlier in the year, where we can send someone off to Jersey, another social media influencer. We gave products to one of the influencers that actually some of the students here identified, to send them off to Brighton as well. And they all did their own thing on their own channels, and we got good coverage on it through social media influencers. But the thought of paying an individual to post something to Instagram is not one that goes down well as a new idea. But one of the things that we were saying is that some of the guys down at Manchester Airport, the MAG group, so Manchester, Stansted and East Midlands Airport, they are actually currently recruiting for a full-time 40-hour-a-week social media influencer manager. That's someone who is paid to pay influencers to come up with content promoting Manchester and its destinations and services. So what you need to do is say, we've normally done it like this, look at what these guys are doing, look at the success we've had already, let's apply some budget to that particular area. And that could be CRM, website development, e-commerce development, anything. But the thing is if you don't challenge what has become normal, it'll stay normal and then it'll fall behind, is what I find. So I wrote some questions for you guys because I thought that